So, I can tell you, it's far easier dancing on a stage than using my words. My name's Jemma Bolland. I am the COO of the Scale Factory. We are an AWS consultancy based in London, and we focus on SaaS businesses. Now, a lot of the work we do at the Scale Factory is putting the kind of safeguards in place that mean that our clients can give the right level of access to their teams, which means that they can do their best work while minimizing the impact of any human error that might happen. In most cases, prevention, or at least minimization, is better than cure. But there's one simple fact. No matter what you do, and no matter how exceptional the people you work with are, things are still going to go wrong. Because we're all human, and we're all fallible. Today I'm going to talk to you about managing on hard mode. Because when you're managing someone who's just made a mistake, you're not just dealing with the issue at hand. You're dealing with somebody who might be in a really vulnerable position, and you might also be grappling with your own deep-seating feelings about fallibility. As a society, we don't like talking about making mistakes. We demonize failure. I don't know if it's the same here, but in England, you can take almost any swear word and add the word up, and it means to make a mistake.
What?
I even found this definition in the actual dictionary, and it is super judgy. I mean, seriously, a wrong action or statement proceeding from faulty judgment, inadequate knowledge, or inattention. I mean, this dictionary needs to calm down. Because actually, making mistakes can be the very best way that we learn. And it's an integral part of any creative process. It's said that Albert Einstein said, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." Now, I'm going to level with you. Apparently, it's kind of contentious whether he actually said it. But I kind of like it, and so let's just go with it. But it's not actually just about trying new things. Making mistakes is a part of everyday life. Even the smartest person you know has tried walking away with their headphones still attached, or put salt in their coffee. But without digging into our discomfort around fallibility and mistakes, we can't move through it and become the best possible leader we can be when things go wrong. So, to start getting you feeling all a little bit uncomfortable, I'd like to take you back to the very start of your career. Who here remembers the first significant error you made at work? Now, I'm not talking about the kind of thing that's easy to roll back or restore. I'm talking about something that makes you shudder even to this day. I mean, I can see some hands. I don't know whether, like the rest of you, you've never made a mistake or you're just blocking it out of your memory. I actually started my career in television broadcast. I was 21 or 22, and I scored a job with a major movie network who were launching channels across Europe, broadcast from London. This was a big deal. I was learning a lot, and I was living my best life. Then, one day, on a visit to the transmission suite, I pulled the channel off air in the middle of the afternoon family movie for the whole of Italy with the sleeve of my sweater. Time stopped for a minute, and then the transmission suite erupted into activity and swearing. I was mortified. And I'd like to tell you I handled the whole situation with maturity and grace. But I didn't. I ran away and I locked myself in the bathroom. So what was happening to me while I was there, locked in a bathroom stall? Well, in the first case, abject panic. The thing about the human brain is that we can't tell the difference between a mishap at work and being chased by a very hungry tiger. When we sense any kind of danger, our brain goes into hyperdrive. Our amygdala sends signals to our nervous system, our heart rate increases, our blood pressure rises, and our breathing gets quicker. Adrenaline and cortisol flow through us, and the blood flows away from our heart to our limbs, getting ready for fight or flight. In my case, I went with the flight. It's actually a thing that's happening to me right now as a first-time speaker, so I'm kind of glad that I'm up here rather than pulling my bathroom trick again. I would also have been looking for understanding and reason about what had just happened. Who or what was responsible for this situation? Now, in this particular circumstance, I couldn't really blame anyone other than myself for the fact that I was still styling myself on the original cast of Twin Peaks. But then, at the core of it all, was shame. I don't know if you've seen or read anything by Brené Brown, but I would highly recommend it. Her work on vulnerability and shame is incredible. And she says, shame is the most powerful master emotion. It's the fear that we are not good enough. And that's how I felt at that moment. I felt like I had been found out, that I was a stupid person with stupid clothes, and I was already planning my escape to go and live on a small island off the north coast of Scotland with only goats for company, because I was not good enough even for any human company, let alone this shiny career in television. So you might be wondering what happened when I finally emerged from that bathroom. And the answer is absolutely nothing. Everyone just carried on like before. I was looking around and waiting for the hammer blow, waiting to be fired, but nobody said anything other than a couple of jokes at my expense. Life went on. And when I worked out that I could mess up and keep going, I started to learn resilience. I found out that I could make mistakes, and the world wouldn't end, and the sky wouldn't fall. And I could make better fashion choices. See, no sleeves. Fool me once. Things were looking good again. Then, not long after, I got my first management role. And here's what I found. Those same feelings were there waiting for me as a manager. Only this time, my responses had a much bigger impact on other people. So how might your innate responses show themselves if it's one of your team that's made the mistake rather than yourself? Well, first, fear can make you go straight into action mode. It can make you jump in and start fixing things, to narrow your focus to just the problem in hand, completely disregarding the other people involved or the bigger picture. Then blame. Blame is our sense of self-preservation firing up in a really unhelpful way. It can be very easy to try and remove yourself from the line of fire when maybe the thing that you warned someone against happens anyway. To walk up to them and say, I thought I told you not to do that. To try and make a way to let everybody know that this is not on you. Except for as a manager, it kind of is. And then, deep down at the core of it is our old nemesis, shame. That little voice that told you that you were this utterly cringe failure for making a mistake. now tells you you're just a failure of a manager because this happened on your watch and you didn't prevent it. But the problem is with any of these responses is that you're making this about you right at the time that your team need your support. So how do we move past these very natural and very deep-seated responses to become the best manager we can be when things go wrong? Other than therapy, because therapy definitely helps. Okay, so let's start with what can help in the heat of the moment, because that's the real danger zone. I've got a big checklist here, because there's a lot that you need to take into account. First thing is, just take a breath. I know that sounds really simplistic, but just breathing helps to counter any physical things that might be going on for you. What I'm not suggesting is that you do this. By all means, clear the area of any immediate danger with your team, but then pause. It could be that the best thing you could do at that moment is go and get everybody a coffee. Or if you're working remotely, suggest everyone takes 5 and makes themselves a cup of tea and then regroups later. By modeling calm and positivity, you're going to be reducing any anxiety in your team and putting them in the best place to fix whatever it is that's happened. Be curious about your own reactions. Curiosity is my biggest superpower. The day I learned to replace judgment with curiosity was a game changer. If you're feeling frustrated or anxious in the moment, have a little dig at what might be underneath that. Because if you understand your reactions, you're going to be in a far better place to move past them and be a better leader when things are on fire. Assume good intent. Now, I'm going to butcher a Mary Williams quote now because I heard it a long time ago and I absolutely love it, but I couldn't find it. But nobody comes to work going, you know what I'm going to do today? I am going to make a mess. I'm going to screw up everything I possibly can, and it's going to be carnage. It's going to be expensive, and it's going to be time-consuming, and I'm going to have great time. Nobody does that. People do the best they can, and people make mistakes. Always assume good intent. Now, the next one is, to me, the most important. Bring your team with you. In fact, scrap that. If you possibly can, let them lead. It is the most empowering thing you can do to support your team to fix their own mistakes. They're going to be in so much of a better position the next time it happens. Another thing is to be very aware of the words that you use. The same thing said in a different way can have a hugely different impact. Why did you do that? Lands so differently to, hey, can you talk me through how we got here? And the last thing is, leave anything that's not immediately necessary for later. There will be plenty of time when the dust settles to run a blameless post-mortem, to figure out what went wrong, but now is not the time. So, when it's all over and you've got out the other side, remember to check in with your team. Empathy and reassurance are so important in the aftermath of anything that's gone wrong. I actually do a little thing with anybody that I work with the first time they make a mistake. I celebrate it. I say, actually, I'm really glad that happened because now you know it's okay and that it really is okay. Also, you're not always going to get it right. This stuff is hard, and this patterning can be very deep. Again, therapy. if you get it wrong, own it. Talk about it. Talk about maybe why you reacted the way you did and apologize. Then move on. Treat yourself with the same compassion that you would treat somebody else. But all of this is so much easier if you've done the work ahead to create a safe and cohesive team. Normalize talking about failure as well as success. Talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you as a leader are comfortable talking about what you didn't get right as well as what you did, it can really put into perspective the ups and downs your team might encounter. What feels career-ending for a junior can feel like nothing to somebody who's been around a while. And even the worst day of your life might end up as material for a conference talk. Be very careful of perfectionism. If you hold yourself to an impossibly high standard, if you berate yourself for every little misstep, you are broadcasting that and transmitting that to your team. They're going to think that you hold them to that standard too, and that you think of them in the same negative terms that you use for yourself. Be kind, be empathetic to yourself as well as to your team. Now, I think that blameless cultures are the best way to go. And I'll explain to you a little bit why. The first thing is that a blameless culture provides psychological safety. Now, I know that Taylor is going to be talking to you about psychological safety this afternoon, and I was so pleased to see a whole talk about it on the bill, because it is so important. If your team are afraid, they are not going to be doing their best work. Also, some of the biggest disasters that have ever happened have happened because somebody earlier on did not feel comfortable admitting to a much smaller mistake. By having a culture that's open and it being okay for people to admit when they've got it wrong, you are going to save yourself a whole lot of pain later down the line. Also, a blameless culture means that you're not wasting your time trying to deal with who did it. You can actually fix the systemic issues that allowed the thing to happen in the first place, and that is so much more productive. And also, a blameless team is a cohesive team. They're not worried about whose fault it was. They're working together, they're trusting each other, and they're trusting you. Again, blameless cultures just make everything a lot easier. Now, I got this chart about the kind of different ways you can move towards blamelessness from blameless.com before I realized they were sponsors today. Their blogs on blamelessness are a treasure trove of really good information. So this chart kind of shows the levels from a blameful culture to a blameless one. A blameful culture can be where you might get fired for making a mistake, or if you break prod, you have to wear a silly hat. Now, the days of that kind of thing, luckily, are on the way out. But if anything like that's happening where you work, that's the first thing you get rid of. Because if people feel like they're going to be blamed personally, they're not going to be doing their best work, and they're not going to be in a good position to pull together. Then the next one up. Accountability is good, right? We like accountability. It's a word that we use for a really successful culture. Except for sometimes it can just be a fancy word for blame. Then the next level up, sanctionless. That means that, nothing's going to happen to you if you make a mistake, but we're still going to work out who did it. And then there's the epitome of the good culture, which is blameless. No one is pinpointed. And what you do is you work towards making things better. Sidney Dekker is a scholar in human factors, and he nicely explains blameless culture. Rather than judging people for not doing what they should have done, the new view presents tools explaining why people did what they did. Human error becomes the starting point, not a conclusion. Human error is just part of the journey. But in reality, what this is all about is compassionate leadership. And compassionate leadership is effective leadership. It helps us build trusting and trustworthy teams. It helps us to all pitch in when things go wrong. If you treat people with compassion, they're going to trust you. When it really comes down to it, we are all funny little animals pottering around this earth trying to do the right thing. And people have got all kinds of things going on. There's the pandemic, there's political things, there's family things. Be kind, be compassionate, be generous. Because the not really bad news is that mistakes are going to happen. But the good news is, a team that can handle the unexpected, if they can handle obstacles with positivity and cohesion, they're going to be the most effective team that there is. You're going to have an invisible team on your hand if you can all pull together when things go wrong. Thank you. Come find me in office hours. If you can recommend a rooftop bar in New York as well, that'd be great. Thank you.